Hi, I'm Jay Jones. I'm the founder of the Divorce and Custody Success System, and this is our third module, The Secret to Protecting Yourself. This is our module on domestic violence. And there's no secret to this other than reach out for help. There are people who are there to help you 24/7, 365. We're going to make sure you know who they are and how to get in touch with them. And that starts right now. Most of what you'll see through this module is actually that information. The phone number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, got my notes and whatnot here, is 1-800-799-7233. 1-800-799-7233. They do have a TTY line, which is 1-800-787-3224. 1-800-787-3224. They have a kind of a neat function on their website, which is thehotline.org. At thehotline.org, they have a chat function. You can just go on there. If you can't get to a phone, maybe you need monitored, maybe that's a problem, go there and you can chat directly with folks there. And if you're using the Microsoft website to browse, you hit an X and you're out of the site. It won't even pop up on the screen anymore. So if somebody's observing your online action, then this is something that will allow you to at least be a bit more covert. And remember that when you join this program, you got an encrypted email as well as secure storage. Use that email if you need to reach out for help. One of the things that people are not always sure of when I talk to them is if they're in a domestic violence relationship. Stunningly enough, some folks have been so brainwashed, sadly, that they don't realize how bad the situation is. So let's go through what a definition of domestic violence is. This actually comes from the Domestic Violence Hotline, and the definition goes as follows. Domestic violence includes behaviors that physically harm, arouse fear, prevent a partner from doing what they wish, or force them to behave in ways they do not want. It includes the use of physical and sexual violence, threats and intimidation, emotional abuse, and economic deprivation. It also notes that many of these different forms of domestic violence and abuse can be occurring at one time within the same intimate relationship. If any of that resonated with you, this definition you're probably seeing on the screen right now, I want you to consider the fact that you may unfortunately be in a domestically violent relationship. And don't think it's just reserved for women. It's not. This affects men, women, really anyone can sadly find themselves in this situation. Any socioeconomic group, it sadly hits everyone. But what I do want you to know is that there are people there to help. Again, use this phone number to reach out. What you may think to yourself is, yeah, sometimes things are bad, which is something else that I hear in my consults. But you know what? There are also times where things are really, really good. Actually, that's more of a sign that you're dealing with domestic violence. There's something called the cycle of violence. Should be seeing a little bit more about that on your screen now. And what the cycle of violence is about is a period of rising tension. Like, fine, things are just getting worse and worse inside, but nothing's exploded yet. And then there's a big explosion. Could be verbal. Sometimes it gets physical. By the way, if it's gotten physical, statistically, it's likely it's going to continue getting physical and getting worse. You need to get out now. And I'm not exaggerating, now. If it's gotten physical, please call the phone number you're seeing. After this physical abuse, or whatever period of abuse you've got, what comes is a honeymoon period. There's a period where you may be feeling some fear, but you're also feeling some love, some hope that things are getting better. This is a cycle of violence, and it will continue. If any of that sounds familiar, then you are most definitely dealing with a domestically violent relationship. And you should also know you're not alone. It takes folks 7 to 12 times to leave these relationships. So maybe you've tried. That's okay, and good for you. And it hasn't quite worked out. You're not alone in that. People try and all the time, and they get help. Again, call the hotline to make sure that you can get help with this. Now, once you call the hotline, what can you expect to have happen? Folks are there to listen. A lot of the information you're going to see online is oriented towards women. Makes sense. Sadly, the majority of victims are women. But if you reach out to this hotline, whether you're a man or a woman, whatever your gender, whatever your sexual orientation, somebody will be there to help you. And I really want you to do that, okay? Let's talk about some of the things that you can do to protect yourself. As a lawyer, I can't just tell you to record people, but I can give you some advice that I was given by a police officer that was assisting one of my male clients who was dealing with domestic violence. His partner at the time was threatening to say that he was sexually abusing her kids. It was a total lie. It was all meant to manipulate him and actually coerce him into giving her money. What the officer recommended after the fourth or fifth false complaint was, look, you need to get me some kind of proof of this. If you have a recording, which you can do in Colorado, where I'm based right now, we're a one-party state. If one party to the conversation knows that they're recording the conversation, that's fine. Let me know. Let me get a copy of that recording, and we were able to prove, at least show the officer and get in front of the court, hey, look, this is what's going on. And when you go to get a protection order, which is a court document that helps you, at least to some extent, separate from your abuser, they're going to ask you, hey, what's been going on? Do you have any proof of that? Do you have a record of that? Is there a log of this? A recording can be super, super helpful. Check the laws in your state. And one of the things I'm going to put into your handy dandy success planner is some information on what the state laws are on recording in your state. Make sure you abide by those. But another thing I talked about was a log. The officer also mentioned, look, one of the things that everyone should do if they're going through this is at least make a note of what's going on. Maybe just a simple note somewhere stashed. If you want to hide something online, maybe in that secure storage drive that you've got, that's fine too. An email to a friend, that's okay. Here's what happened. Here's the date. Here's what happened. This is me. That's all you need to write down. It doesn't have to be a lot. But when you do get to court, it's something that you can attach to that protection order so the court can say this is an ongoing pattern of behavior, because that's something they are going to ask you. They're going to want to know, and it will also help your legal counsel. And if necessary, it will help even criminal charges be brought, which probably is appropriate if you're dealing with this, particularly if it's gotten physical or mental. It's the worst. And I want you to be protected and safe. After you've done the writing, maybe you've done recording, if you can, get pictures. People often can forget this in the stress. I understand. I also know that you may be feeling ashamed. Look, there was a doctor who I represented or we worked with who had been abused for 10 years, but her job was treating battered women. She was terribly, terribly ashamed of her relationship, of what had happened. It took her a long time to be able to come forward. Please don't let that be you. All right? She was able to get some pictures though, and that helped us deal with the situation. Make sure you record as much information as you can. The only other thing that I want to share with you today is a bit more about your mind. I know from 20 years of doing this that I got to edit myself a bit here. It is something that gets inside your head. I know that it screws with your brain and your self-esteem and how you see yourself. That's all right. You're not alone, and you are going to get through this. Just reach out for help. Use the numbers that we're giving you here. One of the things that we do when we meet with people is something called future setting. We've heard about fear setting, but what I do is kind of time travel a little bit. I had a client call me who had been in an abusive relationship and she wasn't ready to leave. After a year, she called me back. And when I told her after talking, was, you didn't call me to get more information. She's like, what do you mean? So you didn't call me for that. You called me because you would like some help getting out of this relationship. I can do that. Would you let me help you? And she said, yes. So this can just take a few minutes. We're going to time travel. And she laughed and said, what do you mean? Look, I want you to imagine what the future looks like. You have 2 daughters. Let's start with your oldest daughter. What's it going to look like in 5 years? Who's your oldest daughter dating? How does she think of herself? How does she think of you? Are you still in the picture? Let's go forward 10 years. Same questions. Who's your daughter with? How does she feel about herself? How does she feel about you? Are you still in the picture? Now, what about her younger sister? The younger sister does everything that her older sister does. Same questions. Is that where you want to be? Her answer was, in short, no. Okay, let's do the other part of this. What happens if you do decide you want to make a change, if you do leave? So just tell me. So, well, I'm really scared. I get that. Where would I live? We can solve that problem, right? Because millions of people go through this a year, either through a divorce or separation or through abuse, and they find places, right? Yes, we can do that. So we can find a place. What about money? Well, you're talking to me. You have some family resources. You have some resources of your own, right? We can find ways to move you forward, and you're not going to be destitute. What else can we do? We talked through her fears, and we answered each one of them, taking the future and living in it just for a second. Let's just see what that's going to feel like. I want to challenge you to do that. On that day, that woman filed divorce because she realized that's not the future she wanted to live in, and that the fears that were preventing her from moving forward were things that she could absolutely deal with help. And I hope you'll find that too. The first step, the most important thing here, is just reach out for help. Please call the hotline. Get the help that you deserve. All right? I really hope that you found this helpful. And remember I said I'd ask you to stop sometimes and take action? This is one of those times. If some of this resonated with you, I want you to stop and reach out right now.